Hey everybody. So I want to talk about shame and exposure and blackmail and the return to wholeness, because I've been observing something recently, and I want to share about how a recent experience prompted this live and how I think it's connected to what's going on in the collective. So somebody, an unhappy person in the periphery of my life, recently used some secondhand knowledge about a situation from my past to try to get a rise out of me in a public forum with a comment. And from the comment, it was apparent that this person didn't realize that that situation is not a secret, and that I've metabolized it and alchemized it. And what struck me wasn't the comment itself; it was the assumption underneath it. The assumption that I would still be afraid of being seen. And it caused me to go into deep contemplation about the power that shame has over so many people. And the amazing power, far more powerful than that, that comes up in you when you release the shame that had a grip over you. And how crucial it is that we step into this next phase as a collective of examining and releasing shame. So, the thing I realized as I contemplated this recent jab that somebody attempted, was that once you've truly metabolized your shame, you become very difficult to control. It reminds me of that scene in 8 Mile. At the end of 8 Mile, when Eminem is at the rap battle, and he goes up there before he gets to go first, and he basically takes everything that the other rapper was going to use against him to try to shame him, make him embarrass him, make him feel small and all of that. He basically takes all of that and says, yeah, I'm like this. Yeah, I live with my mom. Yeah, and so basically the other guy has no ammunition, and he can't even get a rap out, and Eminem wins the battle. And I've always liked that scene because it's true. It's true. When you metabolize your own shame, when you got nothing to hide anymore, nobody can hurt you with the things from your past that are painful, but they're not running your life anymore because you've faced them, right? I think anybody can understand that feeling. It's not because you're proud of every mistake or that you don't care about the things that have happened and the consequences for you and other people, but because you've faced yourself honestly, you've integrated your humanity, and you no longer need to maintain a false front or image that says something other than what's really going on with you, right? That's just the healing journey, right? And shame has been used as such a huge control mechanism over us. It's one of the oldest ones on earth, the fear of exposure, the fear of exile, the fear of humiliation and rejection. And it works because we are such deeply relational beings. We need each other. So we fear being cast out and being, losing a sense of belonging, losing love. That's a very real fear for most people, and that's why blackmail works, right? And so we're not just talking about public scandals and public, this whole movement of disclosure and every domain that it touches, because it does touch every domain, is based on the keeping of secrets and hiding scandal and hiding some very, very dark, very hard to take realities. But, if we're ever going to process that stuff, we need to be able to process our own shame, right? And realize that whatever has happened in the past, whatever we've been part of, whatever we've done, or whatever has been done to us, can be healed. It can be alchemized. It can be let go. And then you start to access who you really are. Because you're not so focused on keeping up appearances anymore, projecting a self, an idealized or a false self to the rest of the world. Okay, so this is a basic thing here. So blackmail has been used to leverage control over people on the collective level, and we're seeing that very, very clearly with all these Epstein files, and also, like UFO releases and all of the disclosure that's happening now. And believe me, that is the tip of the iceberg, guys. Tip of the iceberg. But it's also used in everyday life through emotional manipulation and secrecy and, hidden selves, and the manipulation and maintenance of image through social media. For example, you see everybody's, snaps and selfies and, curated lives online. They have nothing to do with their reality that, that they're actually living. And a lot of energy goes into producing that false front. And you see, the thing is, the matrix, and I'll tell you another quick story that showed me, wow, I really felt this happen firsthand. The matrix hooks into parts of us that we haven't yet brought into the light. Okay, so if they've got anything on you, right? Or if you're afraid that somebody's got something on you, then you're not free. You are not free. And this is what they take advantage of, in the matrix, on the individual and the collective levels. It's this kind of spiritual captivity, and we need to expose it now. I've been reflecting on how people become trapped in distorted or destructive paths, or how we get pulled off our path sometimes through a wound in ourselves that we haven't healed. This is how it happens, guys. And if you look at people who have a high profile, celebrities, people like that, you see that, some of them I've known personally before they turned dark. And, it's not because they're inherently evil that this happens, but because, they goes through some kind of fragmentation. They have shame, they have unmet needs. Who doesn't? There might be a desire for power or approval or love or money, or any of the basic things, right? And there may be a place of fear, and all of this is about disconnection from source. So any place where we are disconnected from source, any place where we are living from our disconnection from source is a vulnerable place, right? It makes us vulnerable to all kinds of things. It creates openings for looshing, for manipulation, for it gives the darkness an in, if you will. And so the moment a being doubts their own wholeness, it becomes vulnerable to distortion of all kinds, of all kinds. So it doesn't really matter whether it's small scale or large scale. It's the principle that I'm talking about. And the principle is the same principle, and it works the same way. And so how do we get ourselves out of that situation? Well, the solution here, the real exit, is reintegration, right? And that's why healing matters so much. Healing is reintegration of all of the fragmentation that we have inside of ourselves. Okay, and everybody's got healing to do. That's just a fact. Okay, and nobody is exempt from healing work. And I'm not talking about some kind of perfection or put on purity either. That's the other side of the spectrum. It just makes you just as vulnerable. Purity is not something that you can play at. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. I tried. But I have noticed, for example, with a lot of survivors of some of these absolutely horrific, atrocious SRA cults, people who've just been through absolutely unimaginable trauma, torture, terror, I have noticed that a lot of these people emanate a kind of purity in spite of everything that's happened to them, because that purity is actually innate. It's innate to us as human beings. It's innate to who we are. And no matter what you go through, no matter how you are, besmirched, no matter what is done to you, no matter what you get involved in, if you want to heal, if you sincerely regret whatever it is that you've done, or you want to heal from whatever has been done to you, no matter which side of it you're on, because abuser, it's the abused often turn into abusers, right? It can happen, right? And that's where that amazing purity emanates from. It emanates from the core of our being, from our essence, right? And so when we remove all of these layers of falsehood, and by that I mean just programming too, beliefs that we have that are not true, that are not our own, ways that we've been programmed, ways that we've been suppressed, ways that we've been distorted down to our DNA, right? And we can heal that. We can heal our own DNA, right? By coming back to our essence, by coming back to what is real, by coming back to what is true, and by being willing to be seen, right? Stopping hiding. And when that happens, I think that you can sense that amazing purity. And like I say, I noticed that in survivors, many survivors. Really, it's just something that is so clear with them, because they have forgiven others, forgiven themselves. They have metabolized the shame. And shame is the most debilitating emotion. It is the lowest on the scale of consciousness that David Hawkins created. Shame is the very bottom of the barrel, right? It's the lowest of the low. It's the awfulest of the awful. It is the thing that brings you down the most, right? And so that's why, obviously, it is instilled in us, right, to keep us weak and to keep us from knowing who we really are. So I don't care what's happened. I don't care what you've done. If you're still a real human being, if your heart is still there, if you are still connected to source somewhere, then there is a path back for you. There's a path back for you. So honesty, ownership of everything, right? Which doesn't mean fault or blame. I'm saying ownership, right? That if it is in my experience, if it belongs to me, right? It's mine to do with as I will. And I can turn that lead into gold, because that's my power as a human being. Or I can not do that, right? Not everybody does that, but through honesty and ownership of my creation, right? Because at the end of the day, it is everything that I create is by agreement somewhere at the level of soul, and reintegration of those parts that have been split away through shame, right, or through dissociation, then that we can come back, right? That's what healing is. That's what healing is. The parts of ourselves that we hide become the places where control can take root, where manipulation can take root, where other energies can find a way into us through our wounding, through our hiding, through our shame and guilt, right? Those are where those energies hook into us. It's where the matrix hooks into us. But the moment we turn toward those parts with truth and compassion, something begins to dissolve. I had a very memorable healing session with Katie Bishop, who I'm delighted to say is going to soon be appearing in the Grace Space. She's an amazing healer. You'll see her posts on Instagram. She's called Earth Bishop on Instagram and on YouTube, and I highly recommend that you look her up. I had a very powerful healing session with her, and I've done a lot of healing. I've made it my business to do a lot of healing and to metabolize everything that I can, all of my shame, and I've come a long way, but she was able to see something that I couldn't see. And this is why we work with other people, guys. This is why I have people I work with people, and I have people I work with, because we can't always see what we can't see in ourselves, right? And if you find the right person who is not self-interested, right, who is really a clear vessel for healing, they can see things sometimes that maybe you sensed, but you couldn't quite, put your finger on it. And she identified something going on in me, an entity attachment, and this being had been there for a very long time and said I was still consenting to his presence. And I can't tell you how many times I've said I don't consent to the presence of, any siphoning energy or anything that, it shouldn't be here. I'm saying, you don't have the right to be here. And I think I've cleared a great deal in my field, but this guy was still hanging on because, and he said to Katie, she still consents to my presence. And why? Well, because there was some deep corner of me where I hadn't healed some shame. Yeah. It's amazing. It's like, it's like you clean your whole house. Except for you just don't want to clean out the fridge. You just don't want to face like the stuff that's growing in the fridge, or you forgot about something, or you forgot about a closet that was like, when you open the door, like everything is about to fall out onto your head. Right? So I would say I thought I had cleaned my whole house from top to bottom, but there was this little place that I was still allowing for some stagnation, right? It hadn't really been exposed to the light of day, not totally. And I could feel it as soon as she told me that I was still consenting, and I thought, well, how could I possibly be going? Mm-hmm. And I felt that place in me, And she asked me a really powerful question. She said, what do you need to heal yourself? What do you need to forgive yourself? Powerful question. And open question, right? And so I went on a sort of journey within myself at that moment. And I realized that what I just did intuitively was dive deeply back into that feeling of shame to understand all the root causes for my choices and behaviors. And even though I've done this work before, it was like I could zero in on this one little root that was still in the ground there, And as I reviewed that, I saw how spiritually asleep I had been long ago, how much denial had been at play in certain situations, how innocent I had been, how uninformed, how, emotionally devastated. And I witnessed all of these years of like layered assaults on my divine power that I had been unable to diffuse, unable to dissolve. And I also saw how I had taken all of this pain and suffering over decades and transformed it and alchemized it. And what a huge journey I had been on, but that there was still this little bit here that was hanging on. And somehow seeing the whole thing gave me so much compassion for myself. And, I was able to witness my own journey. I guess it's what I'm trying to say here, because I haven't really talked about this to anybody. But like, I witnessed my own healing journey again and made it conscious, cognized it, right? Brought it out into the light for my own eyes to see. And it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful that I felt this power, rush up into me. And I think that's the moment that I was able to like dissolve this lingering thing. And Katie said, "You did it. That's it. He's gone." And I saw very clearly in that moment, wow, that's where things hook in. They hook into our shame. They hook into our unhealed wounds, our shadows that are unexamined, right? I'm not heroic. Anybody can do this. We all have this capacity as human beings to alchemize, right? To turn, as Satyavati used to say, or still says, some people go around shitting on everything, and other people, a small number, go around taking that shit and turning it into gold. We all have the capacity to take our shit and turn it into gold. Okay? And this is the way. This is the path through, right? When there's no longer a place of unworthiness in you, then the darkness has no place. They have no hold. They can't get a grip on you anymore because you have forgiven yourself. Forgiven yourself, right? Now, again, I'm not talking about spiritual bypass. I'm talking about the really deep work. That means you have to go in and feel. You have to go in and feel all of that stuff in order to process it, in order to let it go. But you can do it. So, I feel like collectively we are moving towards this, we are in this period of enormous revelation. And, as that happens, as things are revealed, as people are exposed, as networks are exposed, as systems are exposed for what they are, well, what then? Because, not everyone who became entangled in the darkness or corruption began there consciously. A lot of these people, some were seduced, some were manipulated, some were born into it, frankly. Some were fragmented, some were spiritually trapped, and if there's no pathway back, then the fear will only deepen. So I feel like we're at this sensitive moment in the collective where those of us who have done our healing, right, most of it, can really hold the space of compassion for people who are, at the sink or swim moment in their lives, like they have to make a decision. And I'm not talking about absence of accountability in any way. that's important. I'm talking about the possibility of genuine transformation for those who truly, sincerely want it. Because if healing is real, it's got to remain available, even to those who lost themselves. Because who among us has not lost themselves for a moment, if not longer? And I think that this spells the end of the blackmail matrix. Okay, that's what I'm building to here. The entire architecture of control begins to weaken when the people are no longer terrified of being exposed. That's how this whole Epstein extensive network that is connected to all of the other dots in disclosure, right? It's not just about trafficking. It's not just about, now they're starting to get into the other portions of it, the genetic experiments and the off-world stuff, and all of this stuff is connected together, you guys. All of it is interconnected, and it has been held together, and it has been kept in suppression through this architecture of control, which ran and still runs on blackmail. Okay, but if you have no fear of exposure, then you can't be blackmailed, right? If you process your shit, you can't be blackmailed. You cannot blackmail someone who has already faced themselves, because authenticity dissolves leverage, and ownership dissolves any potential manipulation, and integration dissolves shame. And that's how it works. So maybe, one of the great acts of courage and compassion that we can provide at this time is learning how to hold truth and compassion simultaneously. The ugly truth about how this world has been run, what has been going on here, and for how long, and how far out it goes, and how far in it goes, right? To be able to hold all of that and compassion at the same time, because we have all been influenced by that darkness. Even if we were not involved in it directly, the sickness in our world has had an effect on all of us, right? So instead of despising ourselves, despising humanity, that's not a solution. We need to heal. We need to be able to look at all of that, face the truth, see the ugliness, get our minds around the depravity of it, take a deep breath and have compassion. Now, I know not everybody's going to be able to do that. That's okay. But it doesn't require everybody. It requires just enough people, right? And we can do that. And once again, I want to say, and I say it over and over again because I think it needs to be repeated, that that's not who we are. We human beings. That's not who we are. No. We have been entrained and suppressed and messed with, interfered with, and over many generations, thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. But in our true essence, our true nature as human beings is not that, right? We are throwing off the dominance of an imperial power that has been functioning here for a very long time. So this is not the moment to get down on ourselves. This is the moment to realize, oh, we're human beings. And human beings are humane by nature. So don't be afraid of yourself. Don't be afraid of your own shadows. Don't be afraid of the depths in you. You can heal that stuff. We can all heal that. We take our shit and we turn it into gold. We are alchemists. All right. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to share. Yeah. Just once again, this is not about denial or enabling or avoidance. It's about seeing clearly, remaining human, allowing the possibility of return first for yourself. And if you can do it for yourself, then you can do it for someone else. Shame keeps beings imprisoned, but truth and compassion and honest self-revelation and decent regret when appropriate opens the door home. The opposite of shame is not perfection. It's wholeness. That's what I want to share today. Thanks for being with me. Thanks for your presence. I've had a lump in my throat the whole time. Bye for now.